Hey there, fabulous. Welcome to Your Marketing Mentor, the entrepreneur podcast where passion meets strategy and authenticity fuels growth. I'm your host, Sherry Sutton, your business growth guide, marketing mentor, and biggest cheerleader on this incredible journey of creating a purposeful and profitable business. Whether you're just starting out or looking to elevate your business to new heights, you're in the right place. With nearly 30 years of experience in strategic omnichannel marketing, I'm here to help you uncover your unique voice, build a profitable business, and make a real impact in the world. In each episode, we'll dive into personalized marketing strategies, authentic content creation, and the complex yet rewarding path of entrepreneurship. Expect practical advice, inspiring stories, and expert interviews, all designed to empower you to show up confidently as the face of your brand. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's get ready to create a legacy together, one that not only makes money, but also a difference. You got this, and I'm here to help you every step of the way. All right, let's dive in. Welcome to episode 4 of Your Marketing Mentor. So excited to be here today to talk to you about one of my favorite types of marketing, podcasting. I find podcasting to be one of the easiest ways to get in front of new audiences and have one kind of central piece of content that you can use to market yourself in lots of different places. So I'm very excited to kind of share with you whether or not a podcast is right for your business. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. And so that's really the goal of today, is to help you decide whether or not a podcast is right for you. Now, of course, this has to be a part of an overall strategy, but we'll walk through at least some of the initial things to think about. I'm going to add some slides to there we go, for anybody who is watching and not just listening. Okay, so the popularity of podcasts is absolutely undeniable. There were estimates that I found anywhere between 3 and 6 million podcasts worldwide. Not sure why there's so much discrepancy, but I think Apple Podcasts, which is seen as sort of, a landmark for these kinds of things, they had like a little over 4 million. But that's a lot of podcasts that are out there. The 3 million number came because they took out all those podcasts that had like one episode and then never came back again. So there's been 6 million that have started and 3 million maybe that are still going. And that's a good something to think about, and we're going to talk about this later, is can you stay consistent when you're doing this? Is this something that you're going to do on a consistent basis? And again, this is something we'll talk about later on in the podcast. There are estimated to be 546 million listeners worldwide. So this is a huge audience. Guaranteed that no matter what industry you are in, there is someone out there listening to a podcast that is perfect for your business. And the average American listens to 8 podcasts every week. I had no idea that there was so high. And, we all have those friends who are like super into podcasts and listens to a lot of them. And then I listen to them. I actually don't listen to them a ton, probably every other week or so if I'm out for a walk or something. So people really love podcasts, though. People who like podcasts, it's absolutely one of those things that you want to have and they go to as a main source for information. But again, you want to start with strategy, strategy, strategy. What is your overall marketing strategy for your business? So what are you doing? Why are you doing it? Right? Who do you want to be? How do you want to show up in the world? What are your superpowers? Who do you want to serve? What do they need, right? Where are they now? Where do they want to be? And how can you help them to get there? And how do you communicate with them in a way that's going to make them know that you are absolutely the person for them? Then once you have that figured out, you got to figure out, hey, how do I get in front of these people? What are the activities that make the most sense for me? So before you even decide if you need to do a podcast, you have to make sure that you have all the other strategic elements in place. So what's my vision, my mission, my values, who's my target audience, where are they now, where do they want to be, how do I deliver a product to them in a way that they are going to get the change that they want to see and the impact that I want to have on the world? You need to have all that done before you even start to decide which activities make the most sense for you to do in your marketing. So whether that's a podcast or social media or advertising or PR or who knows, but you want to have that strategy really nailed down before you make any decisions, including about podcasting. So let's say you've realized, yeah, you know what? I think podcasting does make a lot of sense for my business. I have this is true for many of my clients. I actually walk them through that entire process of building their overarching strategy. And for many, podcasting makes a lot of sense. And so here are some of the reasons why podcasting makes sense. The first is it increases awareness for your brand. And that's kind of an obvious thing. But sometimes, obviously, everybody, if you're starting a business, you need to increase awareness for your brand. The second reason to start a podcast is to increase authority and to drive people really down what I would call down the funnel. And what that means is there's people who know about you, and then there's people who are considering buying from you, and then there are people who are at the point of making a decision from you. Podcasts do not fall in the awareness piece of the funnel. Sometimes it does, but when someone's just getting aware of you, they're generally willing to give your content, 3 seconds to 90 seconds. They're not willing to give you any information, right? This is where they're just sort of swiping or flipping in a magazine or, whatever it might be, like meeting you for 30 seconds at a industry event. That's all they're willing to do at that phase. Once they know you and they want to learn more about you, then they're willing to give you more time and a little bit more information. And those are what are called consideration type activities. And that's things like podcasts, where you are going to be sharing much more information. They're giving you more time, but you're also giving them more information. Like for me, anyone who's listening to this probably already knows me from something else. They found me on Instagram, they found me on Facebook, they, maybe they Googled on YouTube, or they met me at a conference, and then they come here and they're like, okay, I'm ready to give Sherry 20 minutes or however long this podcast is going to be in order to learn more from her. So it's a great way to increase authority and drive people down the funnel where they go from an awareness to actually being willing to listen to you and give you more of their time. And podcasts are ideal for that. It's also a great call to action for people who aren't maybe ready to buy. So again, they know who you are. Maybe they've absorbed some of your other content. Maybe they've gone to your website. They're not quite ready to buy. Having a podcast is a great way to give them some way to continue to engage in your brand without it being one-on-one, right? Because you can't do that with everyone. But you could say, hey, you know what? Watch my podcast or listen to my podcast. And I do tons of free trainings. You can go on there. You can learn more about me. You can learn more about what I do. I give away tons of free content. I give away tons of free content because I know that it brings authority to me and makes people want to buy from me even more. And it's, again, a great call to action to use when people aren't quite ready to buy yet. The other great reason to start a podcast is lead collection. And let me walk you through a little bit of how that works, because we don't think of podcasts as a place where we get leads. In other words, we're not collecting people's emails or any of their information. But you can make a podcast be a lead generator as well, where you're getting emails. And I'll give you an example of how I do this. So right now, I am recording this podcast and I am doing it in front of a live audience of people. They're not live, like they're not in front of me, but they are able to log in during this podcast. I'm going to allow them to stay afterwards for a special Q&A if anyone has questions. But in order to be able to watch me do this live and to stay for the Q&A, Q&A, they had to register ahead of time. And when they register ahead of time, I collect their emails. So you can use these as a lead generator as well. The next reason to start a podcast is really to build trust and connection with your audience. Just a great way for people to see you. I always recommend that your podcast is also done as a video recording that's on your YouTube channel. More people watch podcasts on YouTube. I think probably they still do it more on Apple and Spotify. I'll have to find the number, but I know I don't watch podcasts unless they're on YouTube. So it's a great way for people to feel like they know you a little bit better. They know your voice, they get to see your face, they get to see your office, they get to see your hand, your expressions and your gestures. And so it's a great way to build that trust and connection with people. And you're doing it in a one-to-many way. So you're doing one piece of content and you're getting in front of many listeners, and they're all being able to establish that level of trust and connection with you. And then the final reason to start a podcast is it is an incredible single source of content that you can repurpose for all different types of marketing. And I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit. I call it the one-to-many content model. And this is something that I've trademarked. It's this idea of how you can have one piece of content and it goes into many different places, allowing you to take one piece of content and create a ton of buzz, or just have lots of different pieces of marketing from one thing. So, for example, this podcast, I did marketing in advance to invite people to the live taping where I collected leads, and then they'll be able to stay afterwards for a live Q&A. And I did that through social media. I did that through email marketing. Then once this goes live, I'll also be able to put it on all the podcasting networks. I'll be able to put it on my blog. I'll use it for lots of social media content. So my incredible admin will go in and chop this into smaller pieces that I can use on all the social channels. And I go out to multiple channels. So I'll use the same piece of content on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, and YouTube as a short, all the different social media platforms, whichever ones, you use. You can also do a press release for these podcasts, especially if you have a big guest. That might be something that's good. You can wire a press release. If you don't know what that is, DM me and I can explain it to you. But essentially, when you wire a press release, it goes out to lots of different news organizations, online blogs, online magazines, and it's a really great way to get your message in the hands of lots of people. So you could do a press release for this. You can also do email marketing. I will email my base twice. So I'll email them once to invite them to this live taping, and then I'll email them when it actually comes out, and they can watch it either on YouTube or on the podcasting platforms. And then the third thing I get out of this is I take the video and I put it on YouTube. YouTube is owned by Google. So the great thing is it will increase your authority from a search engine optimization perspective if you put it on YouTube, right? And that's a training for another day, but you want to make sure that your description is heavily keyword loaded. But it allows you to create a YouTube channel for people who prefer to watch video versus listening to podcasts on audio. It also helps with your Google optimization. And when you chop this up into smaller pieces, you can use that as shorts or as short videos on your YouTube channel. So you can see this one-to-many content model is incredibly powerful, where you could do like I am today, one piece of content, which this will be maybe, I don't know, half an hour or so. So I spend one half an hour time period, but I'm able to do all of those marketing activities from this one thing. And as busy business owners, that's essential. We don't have time to do lots of different marketing things and start from scratch every time. The goal is to create one thing that you can repurpose over and over and over again. And my entire content strategy is based on doing that. And this podcast, for me and for many of my clients do the same thing, is kind of the central point of much of that content. So I want to talk about some reasons to not start a podcast. I told you all the reasons that you should. I told you why it's so great and how I use it in my business and how some of my clients use it in their business. But there are businesses where it doesn't make sense. And the first reason why you don't want to start a podcast is it's time consuming. It does take some time, especially if you are doing a lot of the editing and the content creation, and then a lot of the like chopping it up into small pieces and making reels and putting it on YouTube and those types of things. It is very easy, though, to find someone to hire that will do all of that for you at a pretty reasonable cost. My agency does this for a couple of my clients. Happy to talk to you about doing it for you. But if you're going to DIY it, it can be a little time consuming. Once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy, but that is one of the cons of starting a podcast. The other con is that it does require a long-term approach. You don't want to do a podcast, do 4 episodes and go, I'm done. I took a course years ago on podcasting, and they said that I think it's like 90% of podcasts end before they get their 18th episode. And so everyone in the class committed that we were all going to do at least 18 episodes. So that's a lot. That takes a long time. If you're only doing them every twice a month or so, which is the frequency that I recommend at a minimum, then that's a 9-month commitment minimum. So if you're going to do a podcast, it needs to be an essential part of your strategy, very clearly aligned with your strategy, as we talked about earlier, but you also need to be committed to it for the long haul. This isn't a do it a couple times and see how it goes type thing. It won't get the traction for you to know if it's going to work unless you've done it for quite a while. The other reason not to start a podcast is there is a little bit of technical setup. I don't find it super challenging. I have a course that I'm going to tell you about later that walks you through all of the elements that you need to know in order to create your own podcast. I don't find that the technology setup, too difficult. It's a couple cameras. They all plug into your USB on your computer. But if technology is something you really struggle with, then starting a podcast might be a little bit of a challenge. But again, 90% of my clients can all figure it out. All right. So here's my net on this. Podcasts are a great central piece of content, and it's ideal for people who are naturally good at talking and presenting. Now, in my course on podcasting, I talk about whether or not you want to have an interview podcast or a presenting podcast like this, right? A one where you are the only speaker. For some people, presenting like this is very easy. It's very easy for me to do something like this. I've been, on stages since I was a little kid. But for many people, that's not easy. For them, doing an interview podcast might be easier because it tends to be much easier for us to have a conversation with someone else. And so if you're good at talking, having conversations with other people, or you're good at presenting like this, then having a podcast is great for you, especially for the benefit of being able to use one piece of content in many different areas. Your goal ultimately with a podcast is to connect with like-minded people, build your personal brand and your authority, and open up other business opportunities. And again, I think podcasting is a great way to do that. So if you are now absolutely convinced that having a podcast is right for you, then I invite you to check out my new course. It's only $49 and it's called Unlock Your Podcast Potential: How to Start a Podcast That Will Drive Purpose and Profit. And what we're going to talk about in that course is why, making a decision whether or not to do a podcast, which you're going to make a decision from watching this today. We're going to talk about the type of podcast you should have. We're going to talk about technology. We're going to talk about how to find guests. We're going to talk about all of the things that you need to know in order to start and market your podcast. It really is a one-stop shop for learning everything you need to know about how to start a podcast. So if you're interested in that course, head over to my website at sherrysutton.com and check it out. I think I'm really proud of the course. I think it's really going to help anybody out there who is ready to start a podcast. And I'm so excited to see what comes of this, if you do decide to start a podcast, please let me know. Hopefully you're going to take the course as well. But even if you don't, please let me know. Send me an email, reach out to me on DM. Let me know what your podcast name is, how you started it. Please let me know if this podcast inspired you to create your own. And if so, I can't wait to see it and I can't wait to support you. Thank you so much for listening today. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we will see you next time. And that's a wrap of today's episode of Your Marketing Mentor. I hope you found some valuable insights and feel inspired to take action in your business. Remember, you have the power to create a purposeful and profitable business. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Your feedback helps me create content that truly serves you. And don't forget to share this podcast with your friends and fellow entrepreneurs. Let's spread the love and help more mission-driven businesses thrive. Stay connected to me on social media and visit my website for more resources, tips, and support. I'm here to walk alongside you every step of the way. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep shining and keep growing.